Haines was born October 12, 1937. He passed away December 2nd, 2009. He was from Sacramento, California, not far from where this would have been played. Bobby with E4, Haines with E5. Knight F3, Knight C6 brings us to the favorite Ry Lopez opening. A6 is Paul Morphy's defense, and Bishop A4, the Columbus variation. Knight F6, Bobby Castles, and we have a closed Spanish with Bishop E7. Rook E1, Pawn B5, hitting the bishop. That bishop retreats, of course, to B3. Pawn D6, Pawn C3. I've played the black side of this line quite a few times. I favor the exchange variation from the white side. Here, black castles. H3 is Keres variation named for the Estonian great Paul Keres. Knight A5, Bishop C2, Pawn C5, Pawn D4, and Queen C7. Chigorin's variation. Queen's Knight D2, Bishop D7, Knight to F1, King's Rook to E8, and the Knight to E3. The book move here is G6 with the idea of relocating this dark squared bishop. However, William Haines played pawn takes the pawn on D4. Pawn takes pawn and knight to C4. The most common move, you see the arrow there indicates the preferred move of knight C6, but the most common move is Queen's Rook to C8. Pawn to B3, and then the knight retreats back to C6. In this game, Haines tried knight to C4, and Bobby captured that, and then pawn takes the pawn. Now, if we take a look at our eval bar, and I didn't turn on the meter, so let me do that now, you can see that white has the sliver of an advantage here, a very slivery sliver. Bobby plays Bishop D2. Now the Queen's Rook to D8 is played, and Bishop C3. Bishop F8, opening the E-file. Queen D2, now Pawn G6, a fairly normal move in other lines, but really Rook C8 was necessary. The bot's saying Rook B8. I think Rook C8 is just as good. Let's find out. I get a thumbs up. But G6 gets the double question mark, although the eval bar is not as displeased as the annotator bot. But the point is you have this piece relationship here, and as we connect the dots, we see that we can skewer the queen and the rook with this battery right here. And that's exactly what Fischer played. Bishop A5. Queen B8, bishop takes rook, queen takes rook. Now B3, pawn takes pawn, and you want to take this with the bishop, not with the pawn. On pawn takes pawn, your opponent has bishop. I get a thumbs up for it, but it's not as good as bishop takes. You'd get bishop B5, bishop D3, queen B6, bishop takes bishop, and bishop takes bishop, and queen takes bishop. Coming back, you want to take it with the bishop, not the pawn. Queen B6 is played in either case, Queen's Rook to B1, and that, of course, threatens bishop takes pawn check, discovering an attack on that queen. Queen goes back to D8, bishop to C4, knight takes the pawn on E4, rook takes the knight, bishop to F5, rook back to E1, and bishop takes the rook, rook takes the bishop. E4 here by Haines, hitting the knight, knight H2, queen H4, and the rook comes to B7, threatening the fork. Bishop H6 hits the queen, queen E2, rook F8 defends the pawn, knight G4 puts some pressure, the bishop is defended, queen G5, queen E3, pretty insisting on a trade. Instead of taking here, he took here. And after pawn takes queen, bishop takes queen, pawn takes bishop. And Fischer's up a piece. What's the idea of queen g5? Queen g5 keeps the bishop defended and connects the queen and the bishop along this diagonal. So that's the idea of queen g5. And Bobby, with this extra piece, wants to just simplify. And simplify he does. So now h6 by Haines. Rook d7, king g7, rook takes the d-man. Rook c8, hitting the bishop. Bishop b3. And Haines decided there was nothing left for which to play, and simply resigned the game right here. Now the scores. William Haines had an accuracy of 88.0 and a single game performance rating, according to Just.com, 2350. Bobby, 94.3 accuracy and a 2700 rating for this one game.